Hello and a warm welcome to Robin's TV Extra Time as we reflect on Bristol City's festive visit up to the Hawthorns to take on West Brom. Bristol City going into this game on the back of 2 draws, hoping they can pick up all 3 points. And of course, West Brom have become the draw specialists in the Championship. We're hoping for 3 points of their own. Hawthorns, a tricky place for Bristol City to go historically. And unfortunately, it was another tricky encounter again today. In the studio with me, Chris Honor and Joe Burnell. Chris, you were on co-coms. A pretty lacklustre Bristol City performance in the end, pretty uninspired, not much urgency, and unfortunately some quality goals for West Brom, eventually their undoing.
Yeah, disappointing. It wasn't one of our best performances of the season. A little bit lacking in intensity, and we probably got what we deserved come the end of the 90 minutes.
And Joe, at times City kind of looked weak and a bit toothless. You know, West Brom, it was an easy win for them, really. That's probably the best way to look at it. They'll pick up much, harder points this season, but that was a pretty straightforward victory.
Yeah, they didn't have to work too hard to beat us today. I think that's a disappointing thing for us fans and us watching the game. And similarly, we didn't ask enough questions of them either, going the other way. So both defensively and offensively, we were second best today.
The stats tell the tale. If we take a look at those now. See, West Brom far more dominant in possession, but one that we sort of picked out prior to this was Jules 1 down there, and that is reflective really of City's lack of physicality really up against them.
I think so. I think it was evident watching that game today that we were certainly second best in the duels and competing, and that's without the ball in terms of tackles won, headers won, but also with the ball as well. We certainly didn't do enough, particularly in the wide areas. And that was something I think Liam will look at, and we'll look to put right for the next game.
You don't want to kind of blame the conditions because it's something that we're used to in this country, Chris, but the Portsmouth game, which was sort of similar, arguably worse down on the south coast for that one, and it felt as though City again just struggled to kind of get to grips with the surface and with the wind swirling around, and once the first goal went in, it was then too much of an uphill task with that as well.
Yeah, that would be alarming. If that was the case, I'd be quite disappointed if I was the manager, that the players weren't able to adjust like the other side. But we've now seen it twice. We were just talking, before coming on air, that I felt that they were doing quite well for the first 20-30 minutes. Kept it 0-0. It was going quite well. We weren't really dominant, but we weren't being dominated at the same time. And then the weather seemed to change, and we just seemed to just lose our way. I don't know whether we didn't cope with the conditions, the swirling wind. For me, that would be quite disappointing if I didn't have a set of teammates or a team that was able to roll my sleeves up and go really hard and work through all the extra stuff going on around. I mean, it's nice to play pretty football on a sunny Sunday afternoon, but that isn't going to be the case in the UK, as we well know. So, that was something maybe we need to look at.
Well, an hour of the game was really poor. But the opening half an hour, there were glimmers of how Bristol City can perform in possession. Rob Dickie really was the shining light and symbolises that with some of these forward passes. And actually, Joe, you and I were watching separately. We saw it from the likes of Marcus McGuane as well. Bristol City in possession did look really positive and comfortable, and actually were playing a more attractive football for this opening 30 compared to West Brom.
Yeah, I mean, the opening 20 minutes we were relatively comfortable. We had a high press, which I think West Brom struggled to deal with, and the use of the ball coming from Rob Dickie at the back there. He played some great through balls through the lines, and it looked promising the first 20. And thereafter, change of the weather, conditions, obviously goals change games, but other than those 20 minutes, really, we sadly didn't perform like that again. Yeah,
pretty abject beyond that point. And then the opening goal came just after the half-hour mark. And Joe here written down on his notepad that West Brom were finding too much in this kind of position. You're almost waiting for it to happen, and then eventually it did. And we talk about the two defenders, Twine and Pring, they're not really doubling up.
Yeah, that was very. If you watch this clip here, you've got you've got Twine facing the ball there. This is too easy. Gets past him too easy. But behind him, you've got Pring. He should be doubling up there. I know he's worried about this man inside, but ultimately you need to stop the cross, make it difficult. And as I said on my notes, I saw they get to the byline a couple of times prior to this and were pulling the ball back. And arguably the worst part of all this is a free header in the box. You know, he's come in from the wing, the left winger, and it's a free header.
Well, I'm watching it there, and again, just to see your two centre halves past the near post. They're taking one man, and both of them are being dragged out the middle, and the midfield runner has made that run late into the box, and Zach Viner's left with two. He's got his own man and the man making the run into the free space, and it was a good finish, but terrible marking.
Yeah, from a Bristol City perspective, the second goal equally as difficult to watch. Came in a slightly different way, but it was the same goal scorer and ultimately found its way into the back of the net. But there's just too much space out on that left-hand side.
You can see where Metti's tucked in there, very narrow. You can see Viner sort of jockeys in the box. It's nothing worse than, as a defender, being dribbled at. Particularly, you can't commit to a tackle within the box. And if you see there's an overlap on the left-hand side, which they did break with pace, West Brom. I mean, I was quite impressed with how quickly the turnover. And you can see the overlap here. So there's an element there that he may be worried about that. But you've got to stop the shot.
But as soon as you see that white line, you know that the player's getting closer and closer to the box, so he's going to get a shot away. He's going to see the goal in his mind. So for me, Zach Viner's got to get really close to him really quickly, not allow him into the box, because it gives less time for obviously O'Leary to save the ball. But when you see another player, react behind him, someone like Mehmeti who says, why haven't you guys done your job? He should be going with the man who's doing the overlap. So there's lots of people there in that situation not doing their jobs, and I'm sure Liam Manning will be playing them that and saying, you should know your positions. This is what's expected of you. Don't go around blaming other players, because you could be one of them that I'll be pointing the finger at.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing as well for someone like me that's, again, not played the game but watches on as a football fan, is you see Viner retreating there. Surely when you're in training and you've got a wide player with that quality, 9 times out of 10 that's probably one of the easier finishes to make, I'd imagine.
You've got to show him down the line, haven't you,
exactly.
as well? That's the other thing, you've got to change your whole body position, but he's not a right back. No. You've got to remember that he's more accustomed to playing at centre half. With Tanner and McCrory, I think that's possibly the last time we'll see Zach at right back this season. But, he does know. He's a very good defender. He's been brought up through the academy. He knows, and he's played at right back on many occasions. But you do have to just show them down the line, away from goal.
One thing I maybe should have fact-checked before this, but I think that's McNally's 5th yellow card, so we'll be forced to see Viner probably coming back in at centre half, and then Tanner or Ross McCrory, who of course was pretty bright, coming back into that right back position.
Yeah, it's good to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the only and really sort of positive chance Bristol City have did fall to the striker Fally Mayulu, and as the half drew on, chances were at a premium, but he did get one away there, and for a minute maybe those City fans were hopeful.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot to feed on. I don't think his service was particularly great. Probably a difficult game for him to come into. But it's a shot on target. He's asked a question of the keeper.
Is he the sort of striker that maybe benefit from playing in a 2 with a Wells playing off of him? I think the other thing to note is that I think we didn't do that well in the wide areas. So I think Twine or Mehmeti didn't get a lot of balls in the box. Didn't come inside to play off the shape. Come inside, join in with play. We certainly, as you said earlier, we didn't have much running or movement behind, did we?
No, there's no runners, is there? Because we've done away with the pace. We got Twine on one side and Mehmeti, who's been in some great form, but he swapped over to the right side. There's a few changes, a few little tweaks that Liam will have to look at, and whether he wants to roll the dice and do the same thing again. But for me, that was a speculative shot from 35 yards out. If it finds the top corner, we're going to call him a world beater. But there was nothing wrong with having a shot. It might have been a parry out to someone else following it in, but I didn't expect him to find the net from there.
And I guess probably those of us that saw Mayulu in the starting 11, saw those 2 wide players, we'd expect more balls into the box. Surely that was the kind of... We've not seen Mayulu necessarily score any goals yet with his head, but...
We saw clips earlier, previous games of West Brom, where we identified the fact they had space in the wide areas which we could exploit, which we sadly just failed to do today. And as I said, it was probably a difficult game for him. He held the ball up on occasions. Wasn't a lot of service, and as I said, no one performed particularly well, but the white guys didn't. But we need to see balls in the box.
Yeah, and then West Brom looked the more likely to grab a third goal in the game in the second half. A sort of cluster of chances here. I mean, we'll wait for the final one because that was the most obvious, that fell to Devante Cole right at the very, very end. But again, the danger man, he was finding too much space in and around those areas in the box.
I think you said, Chris, that they also almost had a bit of a swagger, West Brom.
They did, yeah.
And I can't help thinking that was probably down to us not competing enough. They felt too comfortable for me.
Yeah, they did, and I didn't like. I even got to the extent that they were almost teasing us. And as a professional, when I played at that kind of level, that would have upset me and disappointed me that they were. But they were that much better than us. They were able to do it. There was a few little flicks, a few little nutmegs, and the initial one was, where he nutmegged McCrory. McCrory was just desperate to make a mark on the game, and he got nutmegged. But this was a fantastic recovery tackle by Campring. He put the afterburners on, and he managed to get back goal side and get a tackle in. But too much time on the ball initially, and this is another one, Joe, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is gilt-edged here. I mean, it's almost one-on-one with a keeper. You'd expect anyone at that level to tuck that away, and we were fortunate not to go 3-0 down at that point.
It was interesting as well as the game drew on, rather like you saying there, Chris, about them teasing us. They didn't even really need to deploy those kind of time-wasting tactics or anything late on, because Bristol City weren't offering anything.
There wasn't any olays from the crowd, but I felt as if it was too cold to do that. But any other time in the season, it just seemed too easy to pass the ball about in midfield, go back to the centre half, play through, and that Diagana ball there was just delicious, wasn't it? And just looked as if it needed to be tucked away by Cole, which luckily for City it wasn't. But yeah, they just did have a little bit of a swag, and they enjoyed the last 20 minutes.
Just far too comfortable for them. As I said, you might be better players, might have a bigger wage bill, but you can always compete and you can always make it difficult for the opposition, and we failed on that. And I felt a little bit sorry for the back lads, because there was some great free balls there, but all of it was unopposed. There's nothing worse than playing at the back, and they've got the freedom to pick those passes, those free balls through, which is difficult to defend against when you're unopposed with no pressure on the ball.
Yeah. We'll finish on a more positive note. We mentioned the impact that Ross McCrory and Hirakawa made when they came off the bench back earlier on Robin's TV. Hirakawa in particular, there's a couple of touches where he just flicked it beyond the defender. I think there was a yellow card to Bartley at the back as well. He does, whilst Bristol City aren't playing particularly well, you have to admire the fact he has settled in pretty quickly, and he looks like he's playing with real quality at times. Yeah,
he's certainly a threat. I like how his energy and how bright he is. You'll see here, he's always moving, he's always threatening in behind, and he's great. You don't see many dribblers nowadays either, do you? So that in itself is a real pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and I think maybe he didn't start the game, Chris, because again, it's probably Liam Manning's view to kind of keep these players fresh potentially. But then again, speaking as somebody that's not played the game, a week's break, you'd imagine, is enough then to push 90 minutes again.
Well, I don't think that was his decision. I just think Mehmeti has been doing probably slightly better than him over the last month or so, and Twine obviously offers something a little bit different. But Hirakawa, for me, gets me on the edge of the seat each time he gets the ball. He's been a bit flat against QPR, but we were so convincing against QPR the first half. It was left to the others to do. But he came on, and I quite liked it. Just a little backwards header. Went and got the second one, went past him, set up McCrory there, who tamely side-footed it at the goalkeeper or towards the goal. But it's just really exciting. And he was the only one who really offered any threat.
I was a little bit surprised not to see him come on at half-time, actually, given we were 2-0 down. Too. And as I said, other than the opening 20 minutes where we gave a good account of ourselves, it was obvious at that point I think we needed to make changes. And how well he played when he came on, almost a bit disappointed not to see him.
Well, we were both surprised that Bird was taken off at half time. For me, he was the link between back and front. We were just talking about Dickie's lovely balls into Bird in the first half. Once Bird was gone, and again that was another tactical decision that Liam Manning's had to make. where was our outlet? And it became Hirakawa only when he came onto the pitch. But there was that 20-minute period where we offered absolutely nothing, and we kind of lost the game, and the game was taken away from us by Albion's dominance.
Yeah. Well, we look ahead to Luton, of course, on Boxing Day. Reactions needed. Wells, hopefully, as per Liam Manning's pre-match interview, will be back for that one. Can't really hide behind the fact that there's injuries. The squad has been more threadbare before. We need to see a big reaction.
Yeah, and I think the final third, our front players, if you like, I think that's where we're looking at and asking questions. With Naki not being present today, it's we missed him hugely.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Portsmouth game. I understand it was pretty bad. I did watch the following game at Sunderland. It was a great reaction. So that's what we'll be looking for now, a big reaction after today's performance, where they'll all be feeling, they didn't give a good enough account of themselves. And it'll be important. And Chris said earlier, it'll be a sellout crowd, no doubt, Boxing Day. Good atmosphere. It's just important now that we show
But we have
up.
the habit of bouncing back, don't we? We do go Portsmouth, Sunderland. We go, terrible consistency, but we do bounce back. There's a lot of heart in the dressing room. There's a good character in the dressing room, but that for me leaves me confused about why we do these performances now and there in the Blackburn, the Portsmouth, the Albion, and we've got some tough local derbies over the Christmas period. We've got Portsmouth and Plymouth, Luton as well, and they'll bring a few. So there's lots to play for still. Maybe 9 points.
Fingers crossed. That would be quite the reaction. Merry Christmas to you both. Thank you very much for joining us here on Robins TV Extra Time. That is it from us. Bristol City unfortunately go down 2-0 at the Hawthorns, but of course have the chance to bounce back on Boxing Day against Luton Town. Fingers crossed they will. From us here in the Robins TV studio, we'll see you next time.